Hello to everybody, my name is Stefano and welcome to this episode of the Think and Analyze podcast. Now, today we will talk about the following question. Do you internalize what you learn? So, first of all, as always, let's start with what I mean with this question. Basically, in my opinion, or at least in this context, I would say that internalizing what is learned means being able to apply it directly to everyday life, or to derive a conclusion from it, which then are applied to regular life. Now, some things might not be applicable to regular life, I know, but generally speaking, we could say that many of the things we learn can be applied to that, not every day, but to situations which occur generally in regular life. Of course, maybe sometimes, not always, but um, often it is the case. And even if it wasn't, in that case, we could say that to internalize what is learned means to be able to recognize whenever that thing pops out what you are facing. Okay, so not being naive to what you are facing, but actually remembering that you learned that specific phenomenon in the past, and you then know how to react to it. Now, why am I asking this question? Well, basically, because I have a feeling, and I'll explain why I have this feeling in a second. I have a feeling that many people heavily, and I mean really, really extremely heavily, separate the theoretical concepts from their experience. So they separate them so that the theoretical things, or actually the things they learned, the things they learn are on a whole another level from their experience, are another world. It is something else which doesn't affect them. I have this feeling, and maybe kind of related to this feeling is the fact that many people think they are always the exception to what you're studying, or we could say to phenomena, generally speaking, and thus what they learn by reading or studying or whatever does not apply to them because they believe they are different. So they have this feeling, I am different, so everything I learn, yeah, I have learned it. I know that it is possible, I know that it is true, but if actually someone asks them, but do you see yourself in that specific situation you just learned, you just studied? They say, well, no, because I am different, because I am this and that. And this is sort of a very weird, but at the same time interesting, but at the same time kind of sad thing, because you can see that these perceptions are the mere result of self-serving bias and fundamental attribution errors, with self-serving bias being those bias through which we tend to consider ourselves much better than the average person, or consider ourselves, generally speaking, positively uh, or more positively than other people. And the fundamental attribution error, we talked about it in the last episode, or like 2 episodes ago, so you should know that. So Okay, I just wanted to make an example, but first I want to um, go a little bit deeper into that, or I should say, expand a little bit this um, these concepts, by saying that these perceptions are related, in my opinion, also to or, well, we could say that these perceptions are related to self-serving bias and fundamental attribution errors, and you can see that you can see these kind of things in another perspective when you realize that many times, sorry, um, people believe that problems are always somewhere else, and they are never the cause of them. And so, well, basically, the this kind of belief is basically the result, as we said, of self-serving bias and fundamental attribution errors and those kind of things. Now, I just want to say something I realized like right now, which is the fact that until now, up to this point, I've used the word people to describe the subjects which are uh, exactly subject to what I am talking about. Almost as if I do not consider myself as an ordinary people. And so, on a meta level of analysis of my speech, of my words, one might argue that I am also guilty of the same self serving bias and fundamental attribution errors I was talking about. And to an extent, it is true. But I honestly believe that one cannot actually be sort of free from them. It is always something which affects every one of us, including me, including you that are listening. But in my opinion, um, the fact that I use people um, might be because I honestly feel, actually, I have no fear in telling you this. I honestly feel that I am actually a little bit different from ordinary people, simply because um, but no, let me rephrase that. Ordinary people are just an idea which really doesn't correlates with reality. Let me just say that I honestly know that I might be guilty of self-serving bias, but I also know that I am aware of these self-serving bias. Whereas I honestly believe that many times people are not even aware of the fact that they exist. And so, by me being aware, I recognize that maybe I am a little bit different, that maybe I am the exception. But I always am aware that this might not be the case. It's kind of tricky speech, this one. It's kind of tricky explanation because it is almost a loop, a spiral, which goes in a direction and returns to the starting point. I hope that you get what I mean. Um, Now, let me just make some examples, as I said in the beginning of this episode, because um, these these examples are exactly what has led me to do this episode. And actually, the first example really comes from, I guess, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I was in a situation. I'm not going to describe it completely, but something that really caught me right in that specific moment. I mean, not just it's not that I witnessed this thing, and after some time I realized it. Like right in that moment, I knew that something was going on, and because I heard a person saying that people are stupid, okay, and people are stupid, people are dumb. I don't know the term, the correct translation from Italian, but this really caught me like deep down because I had a super simple example of how people are affected by these self-serving bias because in the moment you say people are dumb is you are basically saying that you are not dumb, and by you generalizing what happens on an external situation and saying that you are the exception, you are basically like a simple, mere victim of the very self-serving bias we were talking about. And the craziest part about this is that this person should know because they were because I know that they know the fact that sorry because I know that they studied self-serving bias, and this really was mind blowing for me because I'm like, how could you study self-serving bias and then made such a statement which is basically um, which basically makes me understand that you actually didn't internalize what you learned. Because, in my opinion, if you internalized the concepts of self-serving bias, and so you didn't leave it on a whole another word, but you actually internalized it, you would know that such a statement is very, we could say, um, well, I'm not going to say dumb because it is kind of different, kind of difficult to judge, but it is a little bit generalizing. It is a little bit, we could say, superficial. And so, yeah, that really was mind blowing for me. I'm going to admit it. And another example of how self-serving bias sort of affect people is the following. I have many times in the past I have heard this phrase: "People should do this instead of that," almost as if the one who is speaking is implying that they always do the right thing, that they always know what is the right thing, that they know what others should do because they are different. And so you clearly see that these self-serving bias are happening, we could say. Now, I didn't ask the same people who said those things. I didn't ask them, but do you know that self-serving bias exists? And do you know that you could say on a meta analysis of what you said, you are implying that you are not affected by the self-serving bias, and thus you are affected by the self-serving bias. I did not ask them this, and maybe their statement just might be random. And so I know that this statement does not strictly directly imply what I'm stating, but I honestly believe that it kind of gives a hint of how the person perceives themselves. And so I hope you get what I mean. Also, because when I realized that sometimes I might just do things that other people might consider stupid, the moment I realized that, I also started not to do, or at least to reduce, and at best, my generalizing statement, my judging statement, such as people are stupid, because I know that I might also be included in those people. And so that's what I wanted to tell you guys. Internalize what you learn. Make sure that you realize that what you know is not different from your experience. What you know, the things that you know affect the general people might affect you as well. Even you that you are listening in this moment, just don't listen to this episode thinking that, yeah, he's talking to somebody else because I know that I'm different. No, think and realize that you might also be guilty of this, and you might even be more guilty of this than other people. And so, like, that's something that really I find it quite sad, honestly, because whenever I hear these things, I almost don't have the courage to tell those people, do you know that you are affected by self-serving bias and those kind of things. And so I feel almost as if I let problems pass in front of me, and not do anything. I almost feel inactive. But hopefully, with this episode, I make some things. I create an episode which might be useful to everybody. I really hope of that. And finally, the result of the very same things we just talked about is, I guess you saw that coming, is that people are exactly victim of the phenomena they thought they were sort of immune from. So a person saying something which really lets others understand that this person does not perceive as a common person, but does perceive themselves as different, um, then this person will be the exact victim of this phenomenon. So it's kind of a loop. So I hope you guys enjoyed. With that said, see you guys.